Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Richard Lewis Show. I'm, of course, Richard Lewis, and joining me today, we've got a very special guest, one of Counter-Strike's greatest players in the world, and someone that's currently representing Team Liquid, and has done for a long, long time, which we'll get into. It is, of course, Elige. Thank you so much for joining me and giving up some of your precious time in these summer months. How are things at the moment? You all good?
Yeah, things are great, and thank you for inviting me to the show.
Yeah, it's good to get you on. I don't think we've ever done anything, have we? Like, I think we've done maybe one or two little short ones, but I don't think we've ever done anything long form. So looking
Yeah, this
forward
first one.
looking forward to picking your brains, especially given how much shit we've talked down the years on By the Numbers about you and Team Liquid. So no doubt we'll be able to set some of the records straight. Let's start with what's been going on at the moment then. You guys obviously have just won the RMR. Looking real good, sitting pretty to get to that major. I know the team went through a bunch of transitions prior to that, which we'll get into. But, right now, in terms of where you guys are positioned, how do you think it rates in your mind to where you were when you were the best team in the world, the number one team?
So I think that right now, obviously the HSTV rankings have us at 13. I think that we're a bit higher than that. I don't think that we're exactly like where we were back then. I think that we still have a little bit to go, but I would still put us about around like 7 or 8 or 6. I think it's just very difficult because we didn't go to IEM summer, and whenever you don't go to a tournament, of course you're going to lose ranking, and if you want to play in any of the NA stuff, then you get less points for it. So it's pretty hard for us ranking wise.
Yeah, I think overall, I mean, like, yeah, the rankings don't mean a whole lot right now, frankly, because, there's a number of teams that are in that ranking that I don't think have particularly like bright futures. I think, like, for example, Astralis are like 7th at the time of recording this, and I think they're only going to go down. I think you're a better team than Furia right now, and maybe even like teams like Big and OG, and they're ranked above you. So it's all kind of a mess. The only thing I do know for sure is Gambit is the number one team by some distance.
Yeah.
And then everyone else, it's kind of like a coin toss at the moment. Why do you
Yeah.
think we've ended up in the spot we're in currently in Counter-Strike, where it feels actually that there isn't a very clear, defined ranking, that outside of Gambit, I think any team can beat anyone else kind of on their day?
So you're kind of just like asking why Gambit's like so far ahead.
And why
Just to be sure.
everyone else is so close together specifically, yeah?
Mhm. Honestly, it's pretty hard to like say why Gambit is like so much better than everyone else, because when I watch them, I don't feel like they're doing anything too crazy. They're not doing, crazy heroic individuals. They don't have people just going off all the time. They're just a very solid team. And I actually think they play similar to us, like how we did in 2019 when we were doing really well, but obviously a bit better now since the game is developed.
Yeah.
For everyone else, it's really hard to say. I think that they're all just like kind of trying to find their form. I think that like the top players that everyone's used to seeing have kind of fallen off a little bit, and that could be for a number of like individual reasons for why things are going wrong. But pretty much the game is the same as it's always been. If you look at the game right now, like a top game on Inferno, and you look at 1-2 years ago, you're not going to really find that much differences. There's just going to be like a new flash that's a little bit better. So it's just people that are going to be able to incorporate all this type of stuff just a little bit better, or people that are getting along. And honestly, that's really underrated, because when Counter-Strike is so like high level and defined as it is right now, the game is just a game of inches, and whoever just takes more inches throughout that round is the one that's going to win.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I don't like the current economic meta. I think it's ruined my enjoyment of the game, if I'm being honest. I think watching a team sort of execute on a T side, and if they get like 2 kills, particularly maps like Inferno, you watch basically the T's get the entry kills, and that's it. CTs have to save. I don't think it's made for a particularly interesting game. And while I can appreciate the technical aspects, I'll be honest with you, I'm really struggling to find my enjoyment as things are.
Mhm.
Is that an accurate perception? I mean, do you as a pro player feel kind of it's harder to enjoy at the moment?
The only thing that's been really hard for me to enjoy is just things that are new and things that are more fun to learn,
Mm,
because there hasn't just been any meaningful changes ever since Ancient.
yeah.
Well, pre-Ancient. Obviously, we have a new map to learn now. And I was kind of like saying before that the things that are different are just like a slightly better flash or like a very similar looking execute that we already have had, but someone wants to go this different pathing. So it's kind of just like boring in that regard. It doesn't get me like super hyped to like look up the next thing. Of course, I want to win and I'm going to be looking up that stuff anyway.
Yeah.
But if I was just a random newbie, I don't think that I would be like trying super hard, particularly.
Yeah, I mean, how do you feel about the introduction of maps into the pool in general then? Because, I was interviewing Azza just the other day, and he was saying that if it was down to him, he'd throw 3 new maps in at a time. He would like make these sweeping changes because, as you've already alluded to, when you're a pro, the type of stuff you're doing anyway is boring and repetitive by definition. It's what you need to do to be excellent.
Yep.
So having a new map is something that at least makes it exciting. We only seem to get one in a blue moon, and when we get them, they're really unrefined and not very polished. And I hate the way it takes months for the map to kind of get the changes it needs to be viable. And then I
Yeah.
think by that point, everyone's kind of bored and waiting for the next thing anyway. So what would you do? How would you solve the kind of like the balance of not overloading pros, because too much means you can't perform as consistently, but also keeping things interesting?
I personally would just take out a map by season. So just every single map, every single season, which I would just do pre-player break and post-player break. I would put in a new map, and I would stop doing it by the developers way, where they just want to do it themselves. I would kind of take it out of StarCraft, where they had the TL map making contest,
Yeah.
and those things actually came out with a lot of good maps, and people make amazing maps in the community. And if you just put that up to the teams, and I don't know, maybe we can even integrate it in ESL or Blast, or one of the TOs just integrates the top map that gets like chosen out of these rankings. And maybe we can get it like with Valve and we can put these maps in, because I do think it's very important to start making changes semi-consistently. And unfortunately, with how a lot of pros and the community feel about the game itself, you can't touch the game at all. We saw how it was with the AUG and the Krieg. They didn't even really change anything. They just changed the money, and everyone realized how good this gun was. And then people refused to use a gun that was good, even though they're professionals and they're trying to win. So it was kind of craziness across the board, and people just don't like change.
Mm.
Like professional CS:GO players do not like change at all, and I think that's been made abundantly clear.
Oh,
But
sure.
yeah,
Yeah. I like to go back and whenever and look at there's an article on HLTV. You should go I'm sure you've seen it. You might even have been quoted in it. I'm not too sure. But anyway, whenever the pros are telling people about how the scene should be and what it needs, I always go back and read the reactions from when Molotovs were introduced.
yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, and all of these pro players, like high level in game leaders, they're all there, all quoted saying, well, it just ruins the game. And I don't think it adds too much. And how can this be? They're broken, and just all over the place. Like, people were saying that it took away from tactical depth rather than added to it. And now, of course, Molotov usage is something that every pro has assimilated into their game, and
Yeah.
I think CS:GO is a much better game for it.
Yep. Agreed.
Mm. I mean, look, for me, how are you finding Ancient? The jury's still out for me. I do prefer it to Vertigo, I think, though. So there's that.
Yeah. I think that it's like a way more CS type map. I think Vertigo was way too it's still too weird. Like I think that there's just a lot of things that aren't very fun on Vertigo. The verticality of it and how like the bomb sites are on top of where the T's start makes it very hard for rotates and traditional Counter-Strike. That's why you see people go extremely slow. When you watch in EU, people just wait for like 45 seconds. Then they like do some type of A pressure and they either go A or they go back B. And they have to walk it
Yeah.
the whole time. So it kind of just sucks. Like you can't even move. But with Ancient, at least it's a little bit better, right?
Mm.
The T's are getting more control than I thought, but I feel like B site is kind of like how A is on Vertigo, where it's extremely hard to hold. And it might just be like a retake B simulator because A is impossible to take right now. If they do, it's just because people either mess up or they got lucky or they hit some insane shots. Because the bomb site on A is right in front of Donut, and you could just spam the planner pretty much every time. And the
Yeah.
temple there is extremely insane. If you have an op at temple, they're not gonna like come through anywhere. Uh, so I think that it's better as a CS map than Vertigo by far, but it has like a lot of changes that I still think need to be done. Like T-Spawn, I think they need to remove the water because of that bug that they don't know how to reproduce. So I think they should just take it out so people could rotate normally too.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's good. I mean, like you said, what I will say straight off the bat compared to other maps I've seen kind of just thrown in, it seems to be in a better state of play now. Like I've watched the games that it's been played with great interest. It seems to already kind of have like an established meta. There's like one or two changes you might see made in the future. It wasn't like when they dropped Overpass or the Cobblestone or, you know, just here it is. Deal with these giant maps that make no sense. And yeah, so it's already in a much better place. You know, I don't want to say that Valve are learning, but anything's possible, I suppose. So look, let's get into the good stuff. Let's get into the juicy. This is what people have come for. The drama and the gossip. That's all anyone ever cares about in esports now, my friend. So let's see if I can coax any out of you. Just before the RMR, in a move that kind of, you know, came out of left field for people that maybe weren't plugged in what was going on behind the scenes. Obviously, Moses was removed as Team Liquid coach, and you brought Adrian back, who had tenure with the team before as both a player and a coach previously. And, you know, the timing of it felt weird, and the sort of silence around it feels a bit weird too. Haven't seen any sort of broad statements about it from Jason. I don't even think he's done an interview yet. The players were a bit slow on the tweets to say, hey, thanks, man. And it kind of felt like there was something that went on that was maybe a little bit contentious, let's say. So obviously, people like me, Duncan, we hear things, we'll fill in the gaps as best we can with the information available. But is there anything that you can sort of talk about from your side of things and your perception as to why the move happened when it did and why it was the right move for Team Liquid?
Yeah, so I think Jason is a great guy just to start off the bat. I think he's amazing. I think that he was fun to work with, and I think that he is great. Obviously, you know, from like broadcasts, he's easy, super easy going to work with.
Yeah.
And the move did seem kind of out of left field because there was nothing that was, you know, particularly bad about our results. But I didn't really feel like ever since we removed Eric actually in July, I didn't think that it was a good move to start with because the team kind of needs something that's not like baseless confidence. They don't need people that are just going to hype them up or say words that aren't going to help in the moment. And that's kind of what the team felt like they needed. And I didn't really agree at the time, but I kind of just like went along with it because I was just going to do whatever's best for the team. And that's nothing specific about Moses. That's more about like Adren, where they wanted more like encouragement or like speeches that are gonna like kind of like hype them up and stuff like that. But from how the team is, that doesn't really like help anything. You need when you have a coach and you take a timeout and you're about to like lose the game or the momentum's about to shift one way or the other. You want the coach to take a timeout and they're gonna like tell you this is what we're gonna do. This is what we've been doing, and this is how we're gonna fix these things. And we're gonna win now because I just told you this. Like we're just gonna do our defaults. We're gonna change this thing very slightly. This is what they've been doing, and then we're gonna win the round now because I said that. And everyone's like, okay, let's go. That's awesome. I don't think that just like trying to get like people hyped up is good enough. And I think Jason's really good at that. Like he's a really good people person and he's amazing. He's literally exactly what the team thought that they needed for getting encouragement and getting people on track. But it's very hard to get people that are upset that they're losing to be happy all of a sudden when they don't have a clear answer of what to do and what's going to get fixed. So
yeah, no, listen, that makes a lot of sense. I've done coaching myself, and yeah, it's one of those things. some people they need to be they need someone in their corner essentially. Like they need to be told it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
They need reassurance. But I agree with you. I think it's all academic if people don't have a game plan about how you're going to win. I can talk you through a loss, but
Yeah.
and encourage you, and maybe you pull something out. But I agree. I think there has to be a balance there of I have to present you with a roadmap to victory, right? If I'm coaching you,
Yeah.
and it's my job to get you to respect me enough to follow it and trust
Yeah.
me enough. So there's a lot of that in coaching, a lot of trust. Um, I think Jason, and again, I can't speak on him. Like we barely talk. He said he's taking like some time. I don't know how hard it hit him. So I don't want to say it did hit, he's like super sad or whatever. I think he's just taking some time away from the internet because it was a very high profile appointment, very high profile job. And obviously when you lose a job like that, it's high profile. But
Yeah.
I think he was wondering himself actually whether or not he did a good job. I think it's not like he believes he was the best coach of all time and you horrible players just wouldn't listen to him. I think he feels that actually maybe he didn't do as good as he could have done. I mean, when it comes to the tactical side of things, like you could like how does someone like Moses can't teach someone like you how to play the game, right? So
Mm.
how do pro players sort of listen to somebody when you know that? Like, did that create any weird, tense moments?
It, so yeah, if you weren't a pro player in CSGO or the game that you're playing, it's going to be very hard to speak the same language. And I think that there were like a lot of like different opinions of like how the game should be played because we're kind of like speaking two different languages. Like even though we're both like speaking about CS, it's just different when you're like a high level player and you know like all the intricacies of like every little thing.
Mhm.
And it is definitely very hard to teach that. And Jason knew that we have like higher game knowledge than him, and he wasn't like afraid to tell us that.
Yeah,
He was more focused on getting the best out of us that he could, and I think that he did a good job of that. I think that he was a good people person. He was like managing the personalities good, but I think that just he wasn't what we needed.
yeah,
Unfortunately, I think that he did as good a job as he could, and I think from the start of when he joined Team Liquid, from when he ended, he's improved massively as a coach. He took feedback very well, and I think that he's improved a lot on the organization side of things. Like when you're actually like forming like your coaching routine and stuff like that, he did like everything that we asked, and we developed our process better.
mm,
But it's kind of just like I said, it's hard like when he's not exactly what we need. And I think that we did need like a more tactical mind, especially with Grim coming on board. And I think the
right.
team kind of underrated having a very like inexperienced player coming onto the team where you're going to need to teach him a lot of stuff, and someone is going to have to just work with him like more one on one.
Mm. Well, so you'll see where I'm going next, right? Because if the team needed someone like Adrian, who you brought back, what went wrong the first time with Eric? Because again, I'll be honest, I'm not as harsh as Duncan. I mean, that's just a rule in life. I'm not as harsh as him in general. But
Yeah.
he was. We were both very critical of him as a coach in Team Liquid, especially when you had that run at 2019, 2020, going into 2020. You're the best team in the world. You're doing the Grand Slam. You're achieving all these incredible things. And then when you came back, it looked like you were out of ideas and were really struggling to get back to where you were. We would watch Eric as a coach, and we'd be like, "Why isn't he calling a timeout there?"
Yep.
What that was. It felt like he was like he has a great plan A.
Yep.
I didn't know about his plan B or his plan C, and you need those to win games of Counter Strike. I think so. So, in why do you feel so many people lost confidence? I mean, were there any weaknesses there that he doesn't have now, or is this kind of like you've got a renewed appreciation for what he was doing? Just talk me through the before and after.
Yeah, so when Adren joined the team, he was obviously very new, just like Moses was, since he had to really refine like everything that he wanted to do and get better at it. And he actually worked a lot with our sports psychologist and our manager Steve at the time to kind of just get more out of him. And I think that by the time that he was ended up being removed uh, in July, I think that he improved massively. Like he was definitely like the best coach that we've ever had, and I think that we just lost a lot of confidence throughout that time when we were playing online because we started losing. You know, we lost to Furia a million times. We even like lost to EG at the end there, and you know, no matter how like good you were as a team before or however it felt, when you're all playing online, people kind of just like there's just like a different like atmosphere of the team, and people will start like forming like their own thoughts like, oh, this guy like sucks, like he's not doing enough. And that was kind of like the feel like where he wasn't doing enough, but I honestly felt completely different at the time. I felt like he was doing a good job with that stuff. um in terms of timeouts, I do feel like he could have done a little bit more. Where I was saying before that, like, you know, when you take a timeout, you want to just like either you have an answer for what they're doing, or you say, guys, the game plan is going well. The like things are just getting messed up like here and here, and we just need to fix that, and we're gonna win. And I do think that like when we were having like our run, he could have done that a little bit better. But I think that it just takes time to become a top tier coach like that. And the team might have felt like that at the time. I'm not completely sure. I know that the feeling was more that he wasn't doing as much as he can.
Mm.
And I feel like people think that coaches can do more than they actually can. And what the team didn't realize at the time is that coaches can't really do all that much. You know, it's up to us as
Yeah.
players at the end of the day. Like they have two timeouts, or they have four timeouts. Sorry, they have four timeouts, 30 seconds each, and that's just not a lot of time. Like you can only do so much as a coach, and you have to win it at the end of the day if you're a player. So I think that there wasn't enough appreciation for what coaches are capable of doing and what he was doing and what he became. And I think that he has gotten better, and he's recognized like some of the things like with the timeouts and like more what he's got to do since he's come back to the team. But yeah.
Well, I mean, obviously the problem he's got now is it's he might be a better coach, but he can do even less because of the
Yeah.
Valve rules
Yeah.
around coaching, which really sucks. Can
Yeah.
you talk me through what you think he does as a coach that has impact for the team now, and how you feel in general about those Valve changes to the coaching role?
Yeah. So I think that immediately when he came back, he was already working with Fallen and the team about things that he saw. Like when he was watching us, he was kind of like, when I was watching you guys, this kind of looked bad. Like, can you guys like expand on this or like show like what's wrong here? So that's like one thing immediately that he started doing that the team was like pretty happy about. Uh, you know, looking at the timings of when people are rotating or when they should be moving up a little bit quicker so they can get closer to the team while still holding their map control. That was another thing. And I think that he's just helping us find things that we need. So like let's just say for example that on Vertigo, on our CT side, that we're really strong against teams that go like really fast and they're just running through smokes, they're flashing, they're mauling sandbags, they're going up, they're doing all this stuff, and we're comfortable versus that. We're good against it. But maybe we play versus someone that's a little bit slower and they take their time, about 45 seconds, they do a yellow smoke and then they start working up. And then we feel kind of lost and we don't have a good answer. So I think Eric is really good at breaking down. Okay, we're playing against a fast round. These are our options, A, B, and C. And then if this happens, then we're going to go A, B. And then same thing with the other stuff. And it just very defines like this is our reaction when we're going to see a certain type of strat. And I think that's the most important thing, where it's just getting people really in line with what our reaction should be when we're facing certain types of strategies.
Do you approve of the Valve changes, or do you think they're a backward step for the game?
I think that they're a backward step. I think that it was completely like overboard, like with that change. I think it's just completely like crazy. I understand like what happens like with the coaching bug, but there's so many precautions that are happening right now that I feel like if you were to do the same thing now, you would get caught without a doubt after the first match.
Yeah.
Like right now with coaches, they have like their own coach clients that they download and they have to do. They have to record their POVs. Every single player right now records their POVs and it gets automatically recorded from like the clients. So there's that. we have a literal camera in our room that is looking at the whole room all the time. There's just so many precautions that I think that if Valve just talked to the TOs, or like the TOs just sent that over and it's just like, yo, we have these things here that are going to protect against this ever happening again. Let's still keep, what we had before, because it's really good for the game. So, yeah.
So, right, let's talk about roster moves. I'm going to do these in no particular order. It's just kind of where my brain's going to go to. But I will talk about the Twists one first. I interviewed him. I did his first interview after he left. He's a good kid.
Yeah.
And I've known him a long time. And, behind the scenes, we've gone over a few things that, because there's not really anyone looking out for young kids that suddenly get thrust into the spotlight in Counter-Strike and esports in general. It can be a real tough place. Not everyone handles it as well as you do. So I think he was, the way he framed it in the interview was that like he was a bit jaded. He felt he needed some time off from the team. And when he took that time off, you guys brought in Fallen as a stand-in. And then he kind of said, hey, I'm coming back. And then it kind of felt like he'd already been replaced. And you played that last tournament together. And it really felt like he sort of couldn't wait to get out of there. He did that interview where he was like, that was my last game for Liquid. Bye. It was like, wow, yeah, there's something here. So, I mean, he said nothing but nice things about the team and his time in the team, obviously. But it did kind of feel very abrupt, very sudden, that it kind of felt to me on the outside that things went south very quickly. So, obviously, it's the first time we've talked since it happened. What's your perception on what happened there with Twists and why he sort of ended up outside of the team, given how talented a player he is?
Yeah, so there's like there's a lot of things there actually, and it was definitely a more slow thing that happened,
Right.
even since 2019. So one of the things that he's talked about like publicly is about how he can't eat the same foods, and we've tried to accommodate him like a lot of times with what like he can eat and like where we're going to go, and that just kind of sucks. It sucks that like he felt so strongly about it. Just it was like one or two like incidents, but we tried to accommodate as much as like we could with that when we were in person. But I'll get more to like 2020 because that was more when it started getting more out of control.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a similar thing to Adren and Nitro. When we start losing, no matter how good you were before and how good things could be if they were on LAN, people are eventually going to just start like losing faith and forming their own opinions when you start losing. And if you're not going to be as focused as you would be on LAN and you're going to make more mistakes, then people are going to like lose confidence in you too. So like that just happens when you lose. I'm not saying he's making a lot of mistakes or anything like that. I mean, of course, we all make mistakes. But that just like happens as a team. Like if you see a team lose so much, I promise you they're going to make a change after a couple months. That's just a given.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. So that's just like one of them. The time where he was a stand-in, where we got Fallen as a stand-in, and like honestly, like we were just like seeing like what our kind of options were. Because at the time, like it wasn't more that he was just taking some time off. It was more framed that he was thinking about like leaving and seeing like what he wants to do, and like he's gonna like take a break and maybe he's gonna be happier like not like playing with us anymore. So that's more like how it was framed for us. Like, what are we supposed to do in that situation? Like, just pray to God that like he's gonna come back, or like his contract was gonna be like coming up like relatively like shortly. So we have to do something. Like that's just how a team works. You need to keep moving on, whether like someone's there or not. So yeah.
What was your relationship like with him during this time? Because I mean, as I'll get to a little bit later, I feel that Team Liquid is your team. I think you're the guy that pulls the strings. And I don't think anything happens on Team Liquid without you having a massive input into it, if not being the decider. So, and I might be wrong about that. You can correct me later if that's not true. But what was your relationship like at this time? Because I get the impression about you are very much business-like in how you approach this.
So my relationship with Russ was really good. Like we weren't like super friends like outside the server, but we were very friendly towards each other. I think that we got along well in the server. I think that we had a good relationship overall. Like we play like a lot of sites together, and I had no problem like with Russ on T sides. Like he was like more of like a lurker position, and I was like a pack. But on CT sides, we played a lot together. So yeah, I think that we had a good relationship. I had no problems with him specifically, um, but he kind of like lost confidence a little bit where he felt like he wasn't like as respected by the whole entire team, and uh, I definitely liked Russ like as a player, and we did really well together. But he kind of like felt that not specifically for me, um, and I think that he kind of felt like I think that he felt like he lost more roles than he actually did. Where he said a lot of times like that he became like a support player, and
Yeah, I never felt that. Like he said that to me as well, but I also saw the
yeah.
community saying, "Oh, Twist has been moved into a support role. That's why he's playing poorly." And I'm looking at what he's doing on the server and going, "Well, that's not what's happening at all. Actually,
Yeah,
yeah,
he's played like very similar roles. Even in 2019, if you look back, he played pretty much the exact same roles across the board.
Mm.
He's changed like a couple positions where he went from pack to like a lurk role, but he would end up being like in the entry no matter what. The only map that I know that he particularly didn't like a lot was Inferno, where he played lurk halls. And unfortunately, like when you play lurk halls, the way that we were playing it, which was definitely a mistake, was we weren't having him use his utility for us when we were taking mid. So that means at the end of the round, if he wanted to do any lurks, then he would have to come back for the execute, and he'd have to smoke and flash for us. That's not even like a bad role in my opinion. If you're the guy that's throwing utility on executes, dude, that's pretty nice. Like you're not the guy that has to get melted the first guy. I remember like when I was like first joining Liquid in 2015, I was the entry guy, and I was the guy that's getting out there first. So I'm just getting like offed by JW, like the first one, like a flash missed and stuff. I'm like, awesome.
Yeah.
But it's not really that bad of a role, and I wish that he didn't feel so like I wish he didn't feel so strongly about that, because I just didn't like feel it was the case at the time. I think that he got a little bit more selfless as the team went on, so he could like if he had more money and we were gonna buy, like he would drop AKs. I think that he did become more selfless in that sense. But in terms of his role, like where he's playing, I didn't feel like it changed at all like throughout 2019 run.
Do you think then it's part of this? I've observed this phenomenon a few times in Counter-Strike teams where you have a great season, you're one of the best players in the world, you make the HLTV lists, everyone loves you. When you turn on the stream, when you're bored, tens of thousands of people drop in, they just want to see you play, and everyone's talking about how amazing you are. And then you get asked on the team to do something that's going to take you out that spotlight, or maybe you have a run of form where you don't play as well. It feels to me that there's a certain type of player that this gets in their head. Pasha called it playing for the scoreboard, playing for HLTV stats. And he said that was what, when Virtus Pro was struggling, that was happening. That even these
Mm-hmm.
legendary experienced players were letting the community get in their heads a little bit. Do you have you ever observed that? Do you think that could have been happening to Russ maybe?
I don't really think so. Like, if it was happening, it was like so in the back of his head that he wasn't even aware of it. Because
Mm.
my opinion of Russ is he's extremely selfless, and he would do anything for the team. Like, he was the guy that is willing to buy nades on piss around. He's gonna drop like AKs, even though he knows clear as day that he's like the best mechanical player. Like he was definitely better mechanically than me. So I think that he knows that. I think that it was more of like the team atmosphere and like how he just like felt over time with like a lot of different factors.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, this was the problem with Liquid. It's one of the reasons why, as I said, we'll get to it. Your role always kind of fascinates me a little bit because that lineup, was a lot. Everyone was arguably a star player.
Yeah.
Everyone, and it's like you very rarely see lineups like that, let alone lineups like that work. It was kind of almost like, we did it with FaZe when they, threw together that dream team, and Cloud9 obviously beat them at Boston. But that Team Liquid lineup was almost like an evolution of the idea that you could have 5 stars, and it actually worked for you guys. You won all those incredible accolades, broke the record on the Grand Slam.
Yeah.
And so how does that work egos wise when you're playing on a team where, as you said, everybody believes like, I'm mechanically better than you, I do this better than you, I'm a star player, look at all the following I've got. How
Yeah.
do you reconcile saying to somebody, on this map you're gonna do the donkey work?
Um, sometimes it's kind of just like personality and play style. And a really nice thing about like how it was on Liquid with that roster is that we all had like kind of different play styles. And I'll just like do some examples with that.
Sure.
So like Naf, for example, me, Naf, and Twist, I think that everyone would say is were the stars back then. And we were all like fighting for like MVPs. And Naf even got like the first couple MVPs before like the huge run. He's a player that is really slow and calculated. He plays all like the lurk roles. He plays like all the wall staring roles. It's like kind of what I call them. Like on Vertigo, he's mid and he just like kind of stares at mid, and then like he like regroups. On Inferno, like he's apps now, and he just like kind of stares at apps like as he waits for things. Overpass, same thing outside monster. So he plays like a lot of roles like where he's kind of like very slow and methodical, and he's gonna like, win you a late round and do some like crazy X Factor thing. So he has nothing to do with my role at all. Like if I get upset about him like doing well, well, I can just do my role better. And then Twist's role, he was like a player that liked going in with the pack. He was really good at that. And on CT sides, he would play as our big bomb site anchor, and he loved doing that stuff. Even when he was on Misfits, he played on Cobble, he played drop, which is one of those wall staring roles, in my opinion. Like he just likes playing deady bomb sites, and that's super good for us because I don't like playing deady bomb sites. I'm not good at that. I'm not like very patient enough to play that type of role. So his role has nothing to do with mine. Like on T side, like we were like both like pack players at one point, and we would go into the sites, but it has nothing to do with me. And then same thing for me on my T sides. I'm a strict pack player. I'm like controlling like map control. And on CT side, I'm a rotator in most maps, and I'm like directing like the flow or like what like spot that I want to play or what setup we want to go into when we're gonna reaggress somewhere. So if we were playing together, me and Russ, like I would more be like directing, like, okay, let's go like take ramp control now, and we're gonna be doing this. And that's the same thing. Like it has nothing to do with me. Like if I mess up like with my role, it doesn't have anything to do with them. And I think that if people have like those ego things, I think that they have to see that you could just do more in your role. There is the factor of like, okay, you have to be the guy that has to drop the AK, which sucks, but like everyone just has to understand, like if you have the money, then you kind of just have to do it. And some people would just get like precedent over that if they can just consistently win you those rounds. So I think that there was a lot of mutual respect and people that just like knew their role, and that's why we worked so well at the time.
How much do you feel the team misses, if indeed they do, Nitro? I always, I've talked to Nitro a lot, and I think he's like really, switched on, level-headed guy.
Yeah.
Even when I didn't think he was playing particularly well, I always felt he gave like a little bit of, calm and level, like I said, that level-headedness that you need when the situations are tough. I know when he went, he wasn't playing particularly well at the time he left,
Yep.
and it did feel like a change was needed. You guys have been on a downward trajectory for a while, but I think the one thing that kind of almost has never been replaced in Liquid is whatever his quality was. Do you agree with that?
I 100% agree. And I think the team all recognizes like how important he was for the team. I mean, they realized it pretty soon after. But yeah, he was a really good teammate, and he was someone that you could just rely on. Like if he was gonna throw like utility for you, you knew that it was gonna hit. He was gonna like move in the same way that he should. Like if I'm like moving up like on the right side, he's coming up on the left, and he's like covering me like without just unspoken chemistry. And I kind of felt that the most out of everyone, I think, because he was another pack player with me. And, whenever we're taking mid control, sometimes I wouldn't even have to say like anything to him. I would just say like, I'm doing this, and he's already doing the correct thing that's playing off of me. And it's so hard to bring that type of thing back. Like that chemistry is so hard. And I think that I felt it the most. He's my teammate for the longest time. and I definitely missed him immediately. And I didn't really want to do these changes, even back then, like removing Nitro and Adren. But it's kind of just like I said before, where when you're just having like a long strut of losses, you just have to do something. And I think even back then it made sense for Nick. I don't think that he was like surprised by it or anything. He wasn't. But yeah, I think that he kind of like lost a little bit of passion, and then he lost like his confidence in the team because that was like we had him IGLing for a very long time, and then Stewie kind of took over IGLing, and then he kind of felt like that was going to free him up a little bit, but then like not much like really changed because he's still playing the same spots at the end of the day. He's just like having less say.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of like got to him a little bit, but I think the team now like definitely misses him and appreciates the role that he played.
And that sort of sets off the chain of the great who's gonna lead Liquid kind of
Yeah.
saga, let's call it that. Stewie as a leader, I like Stewie, obviously. He's another great kid. I don't know if I like him as a leader, not because I don't think he has great leadership qualities, but I think there's two types of leader in sports, right? You have the guy who just wants to win and is always talking anyway. You don't
Yeah.
need an armband. You don't need an official title. You're just a good teammate. You're and that's Stewie. Sometimes when you give players like that the title, it ruins their game. It gives them too much to think about. They take on all this additional responsibility. And I think Stewie got into that mad world. I've seen a lot of players go down, like Shocks, like Nico, where they try and do too much. And I'm going to AWP and I'm going to carry and I'm going to lead. It's like, dude, all you have to do is be Stewie 2K. That's it. And like, you're going to win games again.
Mhm.
So, when Stewie stepped up as leader, I mean, I thought it would be you, honestly, that was going to do it. So why was it Stewie, and what did you think about it? Because it didn't work immediately.
Yeah. So when we swapped him, we made a lot of changes back then, like losing our tactical coach and then losing Nick. That like he had a lot of unspoken chemistry with us and knew how to play off of us. It was a big change. So we got like someone that was very new and someone that was also new to coaching and didn't have a lot of game knowledge. So that put a lot of pressure on Stewie to have to teach at the same time as like he's definitely like he's an emotional leader for sure. When and not in a bad way always for sure either. But he wants like things to be as good as they can be, and when he says something, he wants to like done, and he wants it done the right way. And if we mess that up, like he can like take it a couple times, but if you mess it up like 3 or 4 or 5 times, it's like come on, like let's go, like let's try to fix this. So he kind of has like a appreciation for like excellence, and he wants people to like learn as quickly as he does. And it's hard when you bring in someone so inexperienced. And I think that it got to him more where it became hard to lead because there was just so much to do. There was so much micromanaging that he had to do, especially during a round. And back then, the first time he had to micromanage throughout like a whole round, and people like just didn't know what to do at all points in time. There wasn't enough like leadership that was going on, that independent leadership, because there definitely has to be like a hierarchy of leadership, like I forget the word. I think it's like dichotomy or something, dichotomy of leadership
Mm.
or chain of command, something similar.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, the concept, like, yeah,
Yeah.
this guy, then
Yeah,
yeah.
you're just like going like down the command. So he's like calling the main thing, and then have people that are going to be delegating their own roles. And there wasn't enough of that, and that's going to be too much for any IGL to handle. And they're just not able to handle that level of micromanagement, and it just got to him too much. So that's why like we wanted to like find someone that can IGL, and that's why we ended up bringing in Fallen.
And so when you bring in Fallen, he was in a weird spot career-wise. Obviously, all the stuff with MIBR, I think that team definitely outstayed its welcome and we're
Yeah.
dining out on past glories, let's say. I called the Fallen move before it happened. I genuinely didn't know, a lot of people are like, when you said it, you must have known. I didn't know. It just something that I thought would be cool. And when he came in, I felt he was hungry again. I felt he had to be. I felt he had such a terrible time at MIBR to the point where it got almost embarrassing that a fresh set of players, a big org. I felt Fallen was going to go on and really take you back to glory and get you right back up there. What was it like when he first came in? You've got this legendary IGL. I'm sure everyone respects him. Stewie obviously knew him from his brief time in MIBR. So what was the mood like when Fallen arrived?
It was definitely a lot better just immediately off the bat. He's a really charismatic guy that can, he's just like a leader, just a very natural leader, very charismatic, easy to work with. So I think that the mood was immediately a lot better, and we all felt that, and we all like said that pretty much immediately. So he's a great teammate, just without a doubt. One of the best teammates that I've had, and he's very similar to Nick. He's like a very more charismatic Nitro,
Right.
where Nitro is more quiet and calm, where Fallen is just like after every round he's like, okay, let's go guys, like we're gonna like say, he's just saying something after every round, like he just, without a doubt, you can't get this guy down. I forget where I'm supposed to go with this.
Well, so what the question becomes, like, why the change? Because for the RMR, we had him on and we did an interview, and he said, yeah, Stewie's calling again. And I went, what, like on Nuke? And he went, no, on every map, actually. I think people feel my calling style doesn't work in the team. And I was like, but wait, if you're the IGL and you're meant to be the IGL and you're a legendary IGL, a Hall of Famer IGL, and you're not the IGL in this team, what's going on? And he seemed a bit, I don't want to say confused. It kind of, my read was he didn't particularly like it that much, but he was going to go along with it because it was what was good for the team and he just wants to win. So how do we get to a place where we have Stewie, he's an IGL, we agree it's not working. It's not working for him personally. It's not working for the team. You bring in Hall of Famer IGL, he takes over, and then within a few months, you've decided, actually, no, the Stewie project is the way we want to go.
Yeah. So kind of, it does like sound very weird, and we brought Fallen into IGL for sure because it was very hard for Stewie to do it, and kind of the reasons why, I'll just go straight to it, is that we didn't feel like that there was like enough direction throughout the round, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It just goes back to what I was saying when Stewie first became the IGL, where you're supposed to have like a chain of command where people are directing themselves as like little units. And that's how Fallen actually likes to call. He likes to call where he's like, okay, we're gonna do let's do a mid control, and like let's get cat control, and he just wants to like lead it up to us to figure out how to do it, and that's completely fine. Like we can do that, but after that, we didn't feel like it was going specific enough for everyone to not feel lost. And then that kind of made Stewie feel like he had to micromanage more, and he's really good at that. Even during 2019, he micromanaged and like told people, you're gonna do this, and you're gonna smoke here, and then flash, and then wait for our like map control here. And he's really good at that, and we like that. But I think Stewie again like felt like he was like taking on like too much from it, and Fallen like ended up not even saying too much. And kind of how the meta is right now, it's very hard for an opper to IGL at the same time. Fallen was an anomaly for a very long time, being like one of the only opping IGLs. But I think even now it's even more crazy, because if he's not seeing it, then he can't really like call it like at the same degree that like me or Stewie can. And maybe I could have even like taken more responsibility and leadership at the time throughout the first time when Stewie took over the leadership role. I probably should have taken it more too. And I was supposed to be like that second guy in command, but I also was feeling like a lot of stress from, losing Nitro and having like more things that didn't need to be said before that have to be said now, and things like were going wrong a lot of the time. And I think that could have been like something that I did a lot better throughout the time, just taking like more leadership myself and doing more of like the directing to like relieve some of the burden from Stewie. And I would do that sometimes, but I didn't do it enough to make it a consistent enough thing where he didn't feel like as much pressure. So going back to Fallen and Stewie, I think that he had like a good style like for like what we needed, but like just not enough direction. And Stewie felt like he was like fulfilling that direction, and then Fallen kind of felt like, well, if you're gonna be like fulfilling like most of the direction most of the time anyway, you're really smart at the game. You're good at micromanaging. You know what you're talking about. You see the game and such a high level. And Stewie really is like a guy that probably has one of the best game knowledge that I've ever like talked to. Like he just can see it in his head. Like he can like just picture exactly like their setup and what we need to do and how to push and pull them way higher than anyone I've ever met. So I think that Colin is just like, dude, you're so good at this. Just fix like the mental side of it, and you're gonna be an insane leader. And then I can just focus on opping, and I can still be like that leader of men type of thing. Like he can still try to hype us up after every round and make sure that everyone's in it just the same as before, and just have Stewie like focus on the strats.
And that'll probably be more useful when we get back to LAN as well, right? I think,
Yeah,
having a guy that can rally the troops, let's say,
yeah,
it's a lot more impactful when you're traveling and things aren't 100% right. Like you say, maybe the food sucks, maybe you didn't get a good night's sleep.
yeah.
There's delays. You need a guy like that. I mean, do you think? I know this is like this is a dirty question. I apologize, but do you think then that like Fallen without being an IGL can sort of still essentially justify his role within Team Liquid? Because I think it will cause a lot of fans to be like, you could probably go get a younger AWPer that might be a better prospect for the future.
I still think that he does because some of those things you just can't you just can't teach a lot of things, and they just have to be like understood, or that has to come through a lot of experience. And he knows how to move himself and when he should be like positioning himself for utility. And a lot of younger oppers, they even like younger oppers that aren't like the top 2 or 3 in NA, like anyone outside of the top 2 or 3 in NA, just like don't understand like how you should be moving, when you shouldn't go for a repeat, how you have to react to certain situations. And that's just a lot of teaching that like you need to do. And unfortunately for the other oppers, fortunately for us, we want to win, and we are going to like just keep the people that we think are going to help us the most to win. And even if he's not IGLing, that doesn't like mean that he's not fulfilling his role. I still think that he can do just as fine, even without dropping 30 kills a map, because we have so many talented players on the team, and we can very easily go back to our 2019 form where everyone can just like pick it up out of nowhere, everything just clicks. And I think that people kind of overrate like the flashy op kills, and they think that he has to be like doing some crazy stuff all the time.
Yeah.
But he can very easily just get like the easy ones, just like how kind of Device does it, just be very good at positioning. If he knows exactly like where he should be throughout the entire round, he can just keep like farming and racking up kills just as easily as any opper.
So the big question, you alluded to it a little bit. Why was it never Elige that was the in-game leader? Because you're a smart guy. We both know that. I mean, you're especially smart by esports pro standards. I'll say that. I'm equipped to say that. I've interviewed hundreds down the years. You have a great brain, former StarCraft player. There's not a lot of Counter-Strike players that have handled RTSs. You're very personable, good communicator. You are Team Liquid through and through. You've been there since 2015. So why, when all of this is happening, why would you not step up to the plate and be like, you know what? It's essentially, I'm Elige. I'm Mr. Team Liquid. I'll be the leader. I'll do it.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for the compliment first and foremost. I appreciate that. And for me, I think that I've always like kind of I think that I do understand the game at a very high level for sure, but I've always been like kind of scared of like how IGLing can affect my performance. And I think the team we all like kind of think that too, where it's just like whoever IGLs is gonna like take a step back in performance. That's kind of just like understood. And when I'm playing so well and kind of like at the peak of my game, it's kind of hard to just like throw that weight on me, and maybe that like just like affects it like at a very, you know, deep like level. And I was kind of scared of that. The team never really like suggested for me to do it at any point. Like they never even suggested for me to IGL to begin with. I have thought about it like a couple times like throughout my career. Like, should I like IGL now? Should I do this? And I've even like IGL'd like on like sometimes we do like exercises where we IGL like for like a day. It's like this guy's gonna IGL, I'm gonna IGL
Right.
on another map, and it kind of just gets people thinking of how it feels to actually IGL. And when I am IGLing, like on those days, or you know, when we're doing those little exercises, it's very hard to micromanage at the level that you need to be able to win while also keeping up your form. So I think that if I did like take like a dip in performance, or I wasn't playing as well, and I felt like I could be like a better like IGL or leader, I think that's something that I can do in the future. But I think that it's just very hard for me to keep up what I'm doing and what I need to do as like my role in Liquid while IGLing at the same time.
Yeah, I think that might be a fair assessment, but that then leads us into the whole perception I was talking about earlier. All the changes, you know, we've talked about all these roster moves. We've talked about how some moves you agreed with, some moves you didn't agree with. When I
Yep.
think of Team Liquid and I think of who's kind of like calling the shots, I would always assume it would be you. Even if it wasn't totally you, it would be like you would have veto rights. You would be like the 70% guy. I think if team I think a large part of Team Liquid essentially has to be about satisfying you and what you want, because you're obviously a star player in the team. You're obviously the longest tenured player in the team. I think in terms of just being an overall asset to the organization, I think you offer something a lot of other players that have represented Team Liquid don't. And so the question becomes, you know, there are some people that might assume when you know things about esports that, you know, Elige seems like a nice guy, seems like he's just another soldier, but really secretly he's the guy pulling the strings. He makes all the decisions. He gets his way. And
Mm.
certainly I've seen people on forums say stuff like that. I know it was a long time ago. I felt there was a little bit of that around the Simple situation. I know he's a difficult guy sometimes as well. Um, I'm sure there's no need to dredge that up. I think that's been talked to death, frankly. But is any of that true? I mean, are you somebody that, you know, if you need, if you really really want something at Team Liquid, I'm pretty sure you can get it. So have you ever exercised that?
Um, to be honest, I don't really feel like I do that in any sort of way. I don't really do that. I think I'm very reasonable to work with, and Victor also helps out a lot. He's our CEO for any
Yeah.
viewer that doesn't know, but he is really good at talking with me. Like whenever I have like an opinion of like we need to do this in the team, like we'll just like go through like the whole like logic process of like, does this make sense? Like, well, this guy's like still like pretty good, you know. We're gonna go through this, and I honestly don't like really message Victor at all, or Steve even. Like whenever I have a problem, it's like very rare for me to message them about anything. So I'm not like calling for anyone's heads like or out of the blue like randomly to people. I'm not doing that. I promise. You can ask them if you want. I hardly even like message them unless like I really need to. Um, in terms of like the changes that have happened, I honestly have not really been like that involved. I know people in the back of their head, it's like, okay, well, if I'm like the star player, then of course, then they want me to be happy. And I think that my teammates, of course, like will want me to be on board with whatever change that we do. But with whatever change that we agree on, we always make sure that it's a team decision. And that's how I felt the whole entire process on Liquid, even back to the Simple era. It actually was not all me.
Oh
So
no,
I'll just
no.
put that there. So throughout my whole entire time, I've always just met with whatever the team as a unit feels is the best, then I'm gonna go with that. And the only time where I feel like I should have exercised my Elige points would have been during the Nitro and Adren removals, because that was the time where I felt like we're making a change, and I felt the strongest that it was like a bad decision
Mm.
the whole time. But I was still, even then, I just wanted to go with whatever was best for the team. And ever since then, like I felt like the fallout of it and how it has affected us as a team. And since then, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna make sure that the next changes we do make sense for the team, and they're gonna be what's best for the team, in my opinion. And the only change that we've made since then would be Russ and Moses. And it has still been since then. I haven't exercised any of my Elige points, I promise. And it still has been a team like effort where we like talk through it and logically we go through like what is best. And yeah, I think that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. I like the term Elige points. I'm going to start using that, even for players that aren't Elige. So here's one. Is Team Liquid an emotional team? Are they too emotional? I see a lot of, I know the cameras are a blessing and a curse, right? They're all in your face
Yep.
while you're trying to play. But I see so many moments where you guys look really despondent and miserable when things aren't going right. And I've said many times, you know, I won't hide away from things I've said, you know, that I think that, you know, you guys do look a bit emo. I think I made the joke on one podcast. I said you guys can make the best goth band in North America, and you guys would be outraged. You could be the next fucking Cure because you look so miserable at sometimes. Now I don't know. Some people just have like resting bitch face or whatever you want to call it. There's nothing you can do about the way you look, especially when things aren't going right. But is the body language giving away something there?
I think that it is sometimes, and sometimes it's not. I've had matches where, you know, if you listen to the comms, like you listen to match comms after, it's like everyone's like super in it. But then, like, you know, maybe I had like resting bitch face, and like, it's like, dude, Elige's, I mean, why is he so upset? I'm just like, shit, dude, that's just how I look. I don't know what to tell you. But there are times as well that, like, you know, we are a very emotional team. I don't think the camera like always like shows that. I think for me, fuck, I'll give away when I'm upset. If I have like the dead cold look in my eyes, that's probably when I'm upset. That's like how Jason actually referred to it, when I have like my dead eyes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it is something that, you know, when we're not having fun, which as a team, like as competitors, like we're only gonna have fun if we're winning. That's just how it is at the end of the day. Like for CSGO, like maybe other people can have fun when they're just like playing the game, but for us, we need to be winning, and it has to be winning at like a very like high level for us too. So we could win a round, but like if it felt bad, we sometimes like go into like practice mode where it's just like, okay, we won this round, but like this was bad here, this was bad there. Like we gotta like fix that. And I'm pretty good at like biting my tongue with that stuff. And you know, we're not all like as good as that, but I kind of deal with it differently. Sometimes like if I'm like upset with that, I'll just like bite my tongue and just go to the next round. But the problem with me like being a little bit more like quiet and like when I'm upset about something is that I I do better when I'm like directing people more and like kind of like controlling more of the flow. If I'm having Jake like IGL and micromanage everything, I'm probably not going to be playing like at my best because I can just like feel the game and just tell people exactly what I want.
Hmm.
And as a team, I feel like that's kind of like overall like how people feel. If things aren't going exactly perfect, then we do get a little bit more emo, and we're not playing as good as we could, and things like affect us pretty hard. So that's kind of been like the main like focus for the past couple months of like what we need to be fixing as a team, me as well. Yeah,
Who scouted Grim?
I think that we did just like as a team, like when he just like destroyed MIBR, we are just like, okay, we need like a good like rifler or opper. And we just like looked for the best prospects. And Grim like was actually putting up insane numbers against all the NA teams. So we just went with him after that.
How are you feeling about how he's settling in and developing? Do you think he's coming along to the level he should? There was a weird moment. This is the reason I ask. You won the RMR. Stewie came in, did his hi, I'm the agile sub bitch, did the
Yeah.
interview, you know. But he did say something about how like it had been especially difficult because him and Grim occupied similar spaces, and it was weird because he talked about how well the team had done, and then he sort of, I don't know if he meant to do it, but by bringing up Grim specifically, it kind of felt like he singled him out a little bit. I don't think Grim played poorly in the competition, so that felt a little bit weird to me. But I just wondered if in that moment maybe people were a little bit, he's not quite developed as much as we thought he was going to? Or, I mean,
Mm.
do you feel he's the player he should be at this point in his career?
Yeah, so Grim, I think that we thought when we picked him up that it would be he would be a little bit more in tune for how like the rounds should play out game experience wise, and he actually I'll just say like flat out because I think that he's improved so much recently. But the first couple months, I don't think that he was playing up to like to the standards that we kind of like expected, and it did cause like people to get a little bit upset about like mistakes a little bit more often than not, and it was hard to try to keep on making sure like going through like his thought process, and it's hard for him too like
Sure.
it's tough in NA because specifically there's not enough veteran players that they get kicked off their top team and then they go to like other teams to develop these players, and it's no fault of Grimm's that like he hasn't like learned about like flow charting and like going through like phases of rounds. It's not his fault at all, and that's something that we've had to work with him a lot, but there's just no one out there in NA that is teaching that type of stuff. There's no IGLs that are like teaching people, and we had Steel for a bit. Now he's in Valorant. Like he taught like the Chaos players some of like what he should be doing.
Yeah.
But anyone from Liquid, like if they are not on Liquid, they pretty much got sent to the Nether, and they're not. You don't even see them or hear about them like anymore. So it's very difficult, and I think that it was tough for him because he kind of had to change his entire style of like what he's learned from like all of his other teams. And if you get a kill, it doesn't matter that you just got the kill. Like, did it make sense for the situation? Did it like make sense? Like, were you helping your team like as much as you could? And I don't think he was doing as good as he could have for the first couple months. But actually, in the past like 2 to 3 months, he's made such like incredible progress. Uh, when we had like very serious like talks about like performance and stuff like that. And I don't think that he should be discouraged at all. Like when he hears this, I think that he's done very, very, very good. Like
Yeah.
I've taught him like through like the flow charts of like what I feel like how I go throughout rounds and how I like want to study and get better at things. And I think he's really taken it to heart. And he's since he's come back to NA, he's grinded super hard. He's been watching things, and I think that he's showing a lot of signs of good progress.
Mm. What does that progress translate to then overall for Team Liquid? I mean, we talked about it right at the start. You guys currently ranked 13th. You've just won an RMR. Obviously, the major's going to be a big focus. But what kind of targets are you guys setting yourself for the second half of this year?
Targets is obviously to win the major. I think for immediate short term, when we're going to be going to Cologne, I think that semifinals is completely doable. I don't think teams look very great. And just overall, I think the only teams that look very good objectively to me are just Gambit and VP. And no offense to everyone else, but I don't think they look as good as we do. So I think that we can play better than them. And now that I feel like our pieces are way more together since we brought in Adren back, there's been way better practice in NA that I kind of like expected. And we're like fixing things and working on the strats that we need to and reactions that we need to. Grim has stepped up a lot. Like in practice, he's been doing great. He's calling like for like the support that he needs to and reactions that like we've went over, which I've been super impressed with. That's very difficult for him to have improved that quickly and being a quiet guy himself naturally. So I think that top four is definitely achievable unless we just get extremely unlucky getting Gambit and VP just right in a row. But everyone else other than that, I think that we can take them down.
Okay. We now get to talk because it's coming up to the end. I'll let you go and do your thing in just a bit. But let's do some questions about you. Because obviously you've recently started moving into the crazy world I've been in for God knows how long, and that is creating content, which is a variety of stuff. It's been interesting actually. What I think I liked about your content specifically is, it's good to have a player like do a demo review. It's good to have a player say, here's like something that I did. What I like about what you've been putting out is, first of all, it's very well produced, but you've also been using real in-game comms from your team, which is like, that stuff's like gold dust. It's very rare you hear that for obvious reasons. People don't want to give strats away. People don't want to give behavioral stuff away. But it's very illuminating. I actually have to say I'm amazed at how calm and collected Liquid's comms are. I always expect it to be the traditional North American shit show.
Yeah.
So unless you're editing these and it's fucking CGI or something, and like you're fooling everyone, it was very illuminating. But I think in general, the educational aspect to what you're doing is great. So tell me about why you wanted to start making that type of content and how you're finding, the early stages of being a content creator as well as a player.
Yeah. So I kind of started because I wanted to get more into like my brand of what more can I be doing, and unless you're someone that makes content, honestly, like you're not going to get much like more famous than like what you are as a player. Like you could be like a champion, but like unless you make content, then people aren't really going to like know who you are. So I kind of wanted to like develop my brand in that type of sense, and I also wanted to just like start teaching things now, because I feel like Counter-Strike is at a point where everyone knows pretty much everything. There were some things that of course, like I didn't want to like share for a while, like the right eye left eye peeking. I knew that for like since like last 2018, and not only did I know it, but I also applied it, and I think that's what other people didn't know how to do. And I really focused on that, and I think that's why I played so much better than everyone for a lot of months in a row. And still now I think that I apply it better than other people. And there's just like a lot of things that you just can't show, and it kind of sucks because if you look at like Valorant or Overwatch and be like, hey, look at this like cool like setup over here, or this cool like little cage, and it's just like, well, in CS, if I show the stuff that I do, it's gonna really like it's gonna mess me over as a player.
Well, yeah, it
And
diminishes your unique value proposition, right?
Yeah.
If everyone can do Elige things, I don't need Elige to do Elige things.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of it is just like reactions and like knowing what to do in certain situations. And I really do like break down the game like to that level. Like when I see like certain smokes, I have like a flow chart of like, okay, can I do this reaction that I like? Can I do this one that I like? Or can I do this one? So if I was going to teach exactly all the reactions that I had for certain things that I see, then that would just ruin me as a player. So I'm kind of just trying to find like the balance of like, what can I teach that is like not going to ruin me, and like what is like still valuable to other people. So I felt like with the comms, I actually saw like some like Valorant teams doing that first. So I honestly just like kind of ripped that idea from them, and I'm like, okay, I can show this stuff as long as it's not showing exactly like how I feel about the round, like what's gonna like mess it up. Then I can do it. And I just like have my editors just go through it, and I just like pre-watch it and make sure that I'm not giving anything away, and it's pretty good. And I'm pretty happy with how that's been going.
Yeah, I mean, is there any type of content you would like? Again, you can make any type of content, no limits, money's no limits, there's no consequences.
Yeah.
You just go and make it. Is there anything you would really like to do?
Yeah, I actually was just thinking about this like the past like 2 nights, where the content that I want to make, I know exactly how to make it, but I don't know if like viewers really like it. And it takes a lot of effort for exactly how I'd want to get it done. Like I did one about defaulting and how to exactly default, and I thought it was like it was a really good video of like how you should be doing it, how you should be like thinking about like exactly which default to run, and what the service they do. Um, so I would just have to like get like specific examples from a lot of different games when I'm going over certain concepts. So if I wanted to talk about like after plans when you're like in a 2v2 or 2v3, like any numbers, and you have certain types of utility, I would want like people to like find that in demos for me, and then I can like talk about exactly like why he's doing exactly what he's doing, and like showing the concept first, and then I'll show it in action. But like what I've realized is, for me to do that, either I have to like go in like a bot match and like just no clip around the map and just like explain it, or I have to have a literal data vault of all these different examples just ready to go. And if I don't have that, then I need to look for it myself.
Yep.
And that would just take us extremely long time.
Or
so it's hard.
You get yourself essentially an intern. That's what you do. You get yourself a keen apprentice who will go and do all that for you, index it all. You pay him some money, and then it's good to go. And you stick their name at the bottom. Thanks for the research.
Yeah,
that's what
that'd be the only way I could do it. Yeah. So that's like the only content I'm trying to like think about how I can do it.
I mean, it because you've given so much thought about the content. you know, and you're talking about, you know, high level sort of coaching techniques like, you know, flow charting, that kind of stuff.
Mm.
Are you already thinking about what comes next? Because you're only 23. I don't know if anyone's told you that. You are still young. You got, you know,
Mm.
you've been around for a long time, but you know, you can probably be playing for as long as CS is actually going to be around. You know,
Yeah.
so I know. Are you already thinking about? I'm gonna go be a coach. I'm gonna go be an analyst. I'm gonna be a YouTuber or a streamer. Is there anything percolating in that mind of yours?
Not really. Right now I'm focused on just being a player that wants to like expand like his brand. That's exactly like how I'm taking it.
Mm.
I would love to be like a streamer if I could, but I just don't feel like I have the personality or like the willpower to do it. I try
Have
to
you
just do
seen
it.
some of these streamers?
Oh, I have. I
Yeah.
can't. I don't have. I'm not as blessed, if you know what I mean. Like
Oh,
to be
no,
able to
I
do
don't
some of
mean
those
those
ones.
streamers, but I mean,
Okay.
listen, brother. Look. I'm not speaking ill of him. If Shroud can make it, anybody can make it because he is incredibly talented at what he does, but not the most outgoing and gregarious of people, let's say.
Yeah.
But he's just good at what he fucking does, so people will tune in. I think you'd be fine.
Yeah. Shroud is like really good at that type of stuff,
Mm.
and I don't know. He just has like insane stamina to be able to
Yeah,
stream that long, that many hours. Like just think about like XQC.
yeah.
That's just crazy. I don't think that I'd even be able to do it. I feel like after like 3 or 4 hours, I'm already like like hitting my peaks of like streaming stamina. So I think that it's really hard.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. I don't do more than 3 or 4 hours. I can't.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm an old guy now. I need a nap in the afternoons, but you know, like in general, I think, yeah, like being the people who can go 8, 10, 12 hours in a row, I don't know how they do it. I really don't.
It's hard, and I think that viewers don't even like respect how hard that is. They don't understand it unless they've actually done it to the level of viewers that they have, because it does feel different. It just feels different. Like if you're just like streaming to like a buddy or two, it's different than like, keeping up and like making sure everything is like completely like perfect. You're not saying anything like out of line like that you would have like.
Yeah. Those
And
edgy jokes take on a new complexion.
yeah, not even edgy jokes, like literally everything. People can get like upset
Oh,
about
true.
anything. If I say I love the color red, like what? Why don't you like the color
Yeah. Do you
yellow?
fucking hate
Like,
blue,
do
bro?
you hate blue? Like
Yeah.
it's
Why'd you
like
hate blue,
shit,
bro?
dude. If I didn't do a whole essay of like, oh, Gambit is really good. You don't think VP is good? Really? You don't heroic's not good to you. It's like, dude, shit, I didn't say that. Like it's so hard to like keep that up, and any content you do, even Twitter tweets, is like so exhausting with that for that reason.
You seem to have done okay though. Like as I said earlier, you know, I don't remember you being involved in any fucked up dramas. You know,
Oh yeah, I know I'm not, yeah, but it's just
yeah.
like I know that.
How do you avoid that? Because you express your opinions, as far as I can tell. Have you got a secret? Could you give me a tip? Because I'm in a drama every 3 or 4 days for some reason.
I just try not to like talk about things that people can even get remotely offended about. Like I've even like thought about like some tweets that I think that could be funny, but it's like, well, I literally just think, well, someone could take it wrong this way, someone could take it wrong this way, and it's like, well, shit, I'm not gonna say anything then.
See, what my brain does that, but then where you go, so I won't tweet on the flow chart, I go, but fuck them on my flow chart. That's the
Yeah.
difference. So yeah, it probably is my fault. No, in fact, it is 100% all my fault. Right.
Yeah.
So look, you know, we've pretty much covered all of the bases, I think. Main thing though, do you feel career wise, playing wise, team wise, do you feel like you're in a real good spot right now, or you know, is there anything? If you could click your fingers, is there anything you would change, improve?
Team wise, I'm pretty happy recently. I like how everything's been going. In terms of like the game, there there is something that like is like definitely making me not as like sure, is just the just the obscene amounts of travel that we're gonna end up doing. And
Yeah.
I know that it's something that like fans and like even some other people in the scene are kind of like, players complaining about traveling again. Like they're look at how many maps they have on HLTV. It's not even that much. It's like, well, yeah, like we might have to only play like a couple best of threes, but you understand as soon as this tournament starts in Germany, or if I have to be in Europe for it, if the duration of that tournament is 2.5 weeks, guess what? I got to be there for 2.5 weeks. And then if I have a tournament that's right after that, that's also in Europe a week later, or like a week, and then the tournament starts. That means I have to stay for that entire week that there's nothing there, and then also I have to stay for the next tournament's duration. And it is extremely hard to deal with. And I think that I like my problem with it is that there's no reasonable end to it in sight. I've seen like the schedule for like what we're going to be doing at the second half of this year. It's kind of crazy. The next year, I already know like what they're trying to plan, and it's going to be similar craziness. And the funny thing about it is everyone's going to say like COVID caused this, COVID did this, XYZ. Well, actually, I have my schedule for how it was in 2017, 18, 19, and I can look at it, and I know that it was also crazy back then. But because the standard was crazy, everyone's like, oh, we're just back to the normal. But actually, back then, that was crazy. Just so you guys know, it was crazy.
It was still crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't see like an end in sight to it. And that's the biggest issue for me as a player, where I'm just like, I don't know how long I can like do this amount of traveling with nothing getting fixed.
What's the solution? I mean, because, look, I know the solution. I mean, what has to happen is we need we either need a developer run league, unfortunately, which I never thought I would advocate for in Counter-Strike, or we at least Valve have to come in and start saying this is what a circuit looks like, and nobody else can run events over unless using these teams, sort of like what they do with the Dota DPC. And because we're oversaturating everything now, like Counter-Strike, there's too many Counter-Strike tournaments. It's not just about travel. I mean, that's fucking feel sorry for the players, sure, but I mean, also the games don't matter as much. It's Na'Vi Gambit again.
Yeah,
should be number 1 and 2 in the world, taking each other on in a hot CIS rivalry. No, I've seen it.
Like, they played like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
like I know. Let's see who's gonna win 2 times. Like it was the same kind of thing in like 2018, 2019. Like no one really cared that like, oh, Liquid won like DreamHack Dallas. Like that was an insane game, huh? Like, dude, they just won 3 in a row. Like, and like with Astral, it's just like, dude, they didn't just win this. They've won like 2 or 3 in a row. So it's more about like how much people are winning like in a row than a significance on a tournament. And thankfully, some tournaments kind of like transpose like that type of stuff, where it's like, okay, the Cathedral of Counter-Strike, like Cologne just has like something magical. Katowice, the majors, the people do like just give that to some tournaments, but everything else, like it just doesn't have that same effect. And the way that you deal with that is you make the games matter more by having less events. And I know that's hard, and the TOs want to like have as many viewer hours as they can because that's where they get the money from.
Yep.
So, I mean, I don't have like the perfect answer. I think it's just what you said. It just has to be a more defined circuit where everything kind of just like makes more sense.
I be honest with you, it's not the place I wanted to end the interview on, but it's where we're at. So it just happens like that sometimes. I don't have any. I've lost all optimism. I don't know if I'm just jaded because I've been in the business too long and I'm just getting old and grumpy. I don't know, but I genuinely feel like CS is in a bad spot. The people that are making the decisions are either greedy, short-sighted, or incompetent, or all of the above. And as a result, I think we're gonna hit a floor we've not been to since CSGO first started. And I mean that across the board. I mean, in terms of competition, viewership, attendance. We got Valorant breathing down our neck, which I'll spare even talking about that game with you, as I'm sure other interviewers will do that. I think we're in a real bad spot, and unfortunately what we're relying on fixing it is somebody sacrificing a part of their business, and no one's going to do that. So I don't know. I don't know if you are as despondent as me, but I wonder where we are in 2 years. I really do.
It's really tough, and I've heard like some of the decision making process of like some of the tournaments and like how we can kind of free up the schedule if we can. to try to make it a little bit more reasonable and help with the viewer fatigue. But it's just hard. Like you said, like what you're actually asking people to do is, lose 20% of their revenue for like the year. And it's like, how can you like reasonably ask someone to do that? It's just very hard to make that type of decision.
Yeah, because it's take 20% now, or you have fuck all. It's zero. It's zero. You
Yeah.
lose it all. You lose 100% later. But
Yeah.
nobody wants to be the one who takes the 20%. I mean, ESL and the Blast are here to stay. Maybe Flashpoint's not going to make it. Who knows? But then there'll be somebody else, and there'll be somebody else, and there'll be somebody else, and you're
Yeah.
just going to get these events layered on top of each other. I mean, we've got to rush these RMRs out as well. I
Yeah.
mean, it's man, it's such a mess right now, and
Yeah. It really is.
I just wish it wasn't, because I feel like heading into 2020, I think we were still the kings. I mean, we were like challenging League of Legends for like the dominant
Yeah.
esports. Now I don't even know where we're at, frankly. So yeah, it's sad.
Yeah. Well, hopefully the land god can help us, and it'll magically give us a ton of viewers, which I think it probably will. The first one, which will be Cologne at the studio event, but
Yeah,
I don't know. I think
yeah.
I'm a little bit pessimistic about it too,
Mm.
being frank, but I don't know. I hope that it's not as bad as I think.
Yeah, well, same. But yeah, I'm getting to that stage where I'm like, I've got one eye on retirement. I'll be honest with you, brother. I'm like, yeah, whatever. Time to get out, I think. But you will be here as long as there is Counter-Strike to play, I am certain.
Yeah.
So look, best of luck for Cologne. I think top 4. I like that you've set yourself that target.
Yeah. Thank you.
So I'm going to be watching with great interest. And obviously, to everyone that's watching the interview, make sure you go and support Elige. He's a great guy, long-standing, excellent player in the scene, and he has a YouTube channel. I'm pretty sure when Sam edits this, it'll be there. Obviously, he's not editing it live, but it should be on there at the time in the future.
Yeah.
So look, thanks so much for your time, and obviously, best of luck moving forward.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Richard. I appreciate you inviting me to the show, and I respect you and your opinions a lot of like what you think about the scene, and you do a lot of good things for the scene. So it's great to have you here, and yeah, I just appreciate your work a lot. So thank you.
That's very kind. So yes, and of course to you guys out there, be sure to like, subscribe, do all that YouTube shit. There'll be another interview coming. No idea who it'll be with. It'll be another awesome guest, though, of course. So I'll see you on the next episode of the Richard Lewis Show. Take care.